adopt a censorship approach. The University of Chicago has adopted a policy that some other universities have followed, which I will put in the record. This policy prohibits the university from suppressing speech that even most people on campus would find offensive or immoral. It calls for counter speech rather than suppression of people who disagree with speech. And while protecting protest, it expressly prohibits, quote, obstructing or otherwise interfering with the freedom of others to express views that they reject or even loathe, end of quote. Finally, it commits the university to actively, quote, protect that freedom when others attempt to restrict it, end of quote. We have a distinguished panel of guests that I welcome. Senator Feinstein.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to put my remarks in the record, and I am just going to make a few reflections on some of your comments. I agree with some of what you said. I disagree with others. Let's take a look at the First Amendment. The First Amendment says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The fact of the matter is, there are certain occasions on which individuals assemble not to act peaceably, but to act as destructively as they possibly can. And I know a little bit about the University of California, and you cited Berkeley. The president of that university is known to all of us. She was a governor. She headed a 250,000 staff Homeland Security Department here. She is tough, she is strong, she is fair, she is able. And the question comes that when you have a set group of people that come to create a disturbance, and some of them even wearing masks or wearing certain clothing, what do? And big university police departments, it's been my experience, don't always have the equipment, meaning mental and training equipment, to be able to seek it out, to handle it, to isolate it. So you run the risk of substantial harm. And that was what judgment the university made in the one situation recently, that it would become a drawing card for groups that range from anarchists to just very unsavory people to be violent. That is really a horse of another color. I was mayor during a Democratic convention in 1984, and I can tell you there was a lot of fear at that time about what might happen at that convention. So we made a lot of plans to be able to handle it, got extra help, and we did handle it, and there was no violence, and it was a good convention. And maybe universities should be steeped in and have the ability financially to really develop the kind of intelligence you need and the kind of policing that you need at some of these events. I mean, I went to a smaller private university. There was never a problem. But you have big universities, and one of the largest is the University of California with 10 campuses, over 250,000 students. So there are instances of problems from time to time, but I think our efforts would be much better finding methodologies to handle those incidents. I know of no effort at Berkeley of the University of California to stifle student speech, none. And if there is a specific effort, I would certainly appreciate it if people brought that to my attention. But I do believe that the university has a right to protect its students from demonstrations once they become acts of violence. And I hope today that there will be some discussion of when does speech become violent and what do you do to stop that violence? Because we all want freedom of speech. I don't want anything different than you want in that regard. But maybe I live in a different world, having been a mayor at a tumultuous time, having gone through assassinations, and understanding what happens in big dissent. And so, my state isn't your state, but the volume here can be very large. So I just wanted to make those comments and say that it's not a simple matter when demonstrations become violent.
Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this very important hearing. Free speech matters. Diversity matters. Diversity of people's backgrounds, but also diversity of thought, diversity of ideas. Universities are meant to be a challenging environment for young people to encounter ideas they've never seen, they've never imagined, and that they might passionately disagree with.